We do for our premium subscribers at Pokes Report. We try and do at least every 2 weeks, and really we try and do about every week. It's just been really busy right now with a lot of stuff going on. Try and do a chat, where you get personal. We have a chat format. And you get personal questions, conversation. Last night we had probably our biggest crowd ever, and I was working on the post practice spring practice story. I just got driven home and was working on it, and so I got on the chat just about 5 minutes late. Man, tell you, I didn't even need to go. I could have skipped the chat. Everybody wanted to talk to Marshall Levenson about recruiting now. He's superstar. Man, you had your fan club was out last night, my man.
Yeah, it was pretty busy. Like you said, it was definitely the biggest crowd we've had so far. And we've only been doing the chat a few weeks, so it's definitely starting to pick up some steam. But yeah, the recruiting questions were they were getting fired away. I love when that stuff happens. So I was happy.
Yeah, it was good. I followed a young man this morning, the one we talked about yesterday on Twitter, and he followed me back. By the time I was at the gym, he followed me back, and I'm checking to see. I also noticed he's starting to follow a bunch of OSU coaches.
Yeah,
And
he
the
followed me back
scuttle,
as well. He has not reported anything yet, but
a offer, but yeah, this is a young man. I guess yesterday he got offered by University of Louisville. His offer list is starting to crank up. Now it doesn't include Arkansas, but we're talking about a kid named Jalen White who is listed by most people as either an athlete or a safety, but and he plays quarterback on offense for Parkview, Little Rock Parkview, good school. But he's like 6'4", 210 pounds.
yeah, I think his
Which
official listed is 6'3", 210.
6'3", 210, and some people, including I think himself. Well, no, I'm looking at his Twitter. He lists himself as 6'3" on his Twitter. Um, that is, you know who that reminds me of? That reminds me of Cameron Epps.
Yeah,
Reminds me a little bit of Mason Gilkey. I mean, Oklahoma State is they're starting to really look at guys in that range, kind of the rangy, 6'3", 6'4" guys that probably are going to put on a little bit of weight, um, and that seems to be one of their that's kind of one of their go-to frames right now in recruiting. When I say frames, I'm talking about body styles. Is finding those kind of guys, and we've seen those guys end up playing safety. We've seen them grow into linebackers. We've even seen some of them grow into defensive ends and become pass rush guys. In fact, I think that's what they're hoping that um, Colin
Oliver,
Santa Fe.
Colin Oliver.
Trying to think. Yeah, Colin Oliver is going to. In fact, they're with the Leos all being hurt, even though he's
Yeah,
not filled out yet. And I think Colin's more like 220. Um, but he's going to get a bunch of looks this spring as a incoming freshman in January, and that's straight out of the mouth of Jim Knowles. We're going to look at him as a pass rusher and see what he can do.
and it's
So
going to be
that's with
against
now.
some of the more experienced linemen because guys like Trace Ford and Tyron Irby are not out there to take up those reps. So he's not going against threes and fours.
Hmm.
He's going against the big boys.
I'll make him better in a hurry, no doubt
Oh yeah,
about it. So anyway, I wanted to get on that because that's going to come out here. That's going to be your next news, is the offer to Jalen White, and again, that seems to be a preferred body style that Oklahoma State and Todd Bradford and his guys that are combing the countryside. That seems to be a preferred body style that they're trying to recruit. All right, now we're starting to see, and this was a lot of the talk last night on the chat. Um, now that we kind of know when things are going to open up after February, we we talked to Todd Bradford the other day. The Cowboys are going to have a camp week coming up, and the camp week will kind of be centered on these visit weekends too.
Hmm.
They're going to go back and have the showcase camp again with quarterbacks, wide receivers, DBs. That kind of became a tradition just in a couple of years, as a lot of the top guys, even guys committed to other schools, would come in for this camp because it kind of becomes a place where you can test yourself against some of the best at those positions. They'll have a lineman camp, the down and dirty. They'll have a specialist camp, special teams camp, um, and just a general prospect camp. But the visits are what's kind of interesting, and that's you've kind of put that list together, and looks like June 9th through 11th is going to be pretty huge.
Yeah, they and that's pretty common for schools to try and get all of their commits and their top targets in on the same weekend or weekends if possible. And they said they wanted to start early, so they chose recruiting visits open June 1st, and those first official visits are going to be hitting June 9th through 11th, and they've got tons of dudes coming in. Right now we have 8 commitments, and all 8 are planning on being in town that period of days for the commitments or for the visit, as well as several guys who are not committed, who I have a feeling that there's going to be a nice amount of those that are going to come out of visit committed, and they showed up in Stillwater not being committed. So you can expect all of those commitments to be playing a pretty large role in recruiting those guys. And there's several of the guys that are going to be here that already have relationships with some of the commits, whether it's where they're from or played with them when they were little, or maybe even just social media stuff. But they're going to be rolling out the red carpet for a lot of those guys, and there's going to be a lot of people in their ears telling them, "Hey, you need to come play with us. We need to make this class bigger." So I'm looking forward to it because it's going to be a very, very active about week and a half of visits coming through Stillwater.
No, and when you look at it, and this is what Oklahoma State's made. Mike Gundy's done this for about 10 years now. I mean, the class, Chubak Hubbard's class, Spencer
Mm-hmm.
Sanders' class, um, even last summer, or the summer before last, before the pandemic, that was when you had all those kids come in. And remember the again, I keep forgetting the kid's name, the big defensive end from linebacker from McGinnis that ended up decommitting, going to OU. Um, and oddly enough, in the same class at McGinnis was Dominic Richardson, and Richardson ends up, um, signing with TCU, but he ends up at Oklahoma State. But you had that shot. Four of the top recruits took a shot in letter jackets at the library lawn, or the library fountain at Oklahoma State, Edmund Lowe Fountain, and that kid decommits to OU. Now, the rest of them I think are at OSU. And I tell you what, the guy that I think is going to end up being, this is another guy nobody talks about, and this is getting off recruiting, getting into the actual spring football that's going on. But I'll tell you a guy that I think is going to end up being a story before the end of spring is Jeff Roberson out of Choctaw, the linebacker. A lot of speed. He played special teams last year as a true freshman. I think he's going to end up being a guy. But what I was getting back to when I went on my tangent is Mike Gundy and his staff, they feel like they're strength in numbers. They don't want to spread the visits out. They want to get as many in at one time as they can. And like you were talking about, the Jordan Crooks, who's committed a linebacker, the Garrett Rangel at quarterback, the Mason Gilkey, the unsung wide receiver from Pahuska, Landon Dean, guys like that are going to come in here, and they're gonna recruit just as hard as the coaches and the staff do during that recruiting weekend, and they feel that's the best way to land guys.
Yeah, I mean, you see in recruiting that there's, yes, players and recruits, they listen to coaches and they hear the recruitments of them, but they're not always going to tell them exactly how they're feeling. They'll kind of sweet talk them a little bit or say, like, yeah, coach, I'm loving it here, like that kind of stuff. But if there's going to be one person that recruits are telling the truth to, it's other recruits. And so you'll really get to see relationships formed and kind of that bond between recruits while on visit. And you can, like I said, you can bank on the fact that Jordan Crook, Garrett Rangel, Ollie Gordon, C.J. Brown, they're going to be constantly in the ears of those guys that they want in this class. And they're going to relay back to the coaches saying, like, yeah, I think we got him. I think we're going to get him. Or like, I don't know, coach, like, he's not really responding or anything. So it will definitely be a weekend of very fast-paced recruiting because they're going to have a lot of guys. The entire staff is going to be working at, like, individual people. So, but with the way that the trends that this staff has had in the past, June is always a very hot period for them. I don't know if we've ever had this many commits going into the summer. Normally they have like 3 or 4 right now, but they've got 8. So it definitely should still be a hot period. And I see probably 5 or 6 guys committing across those visits in probably the month of June alone. But we'll see. But I'm excited for it. It'll be fun.
All right, let's do this. If anybody has any questions, you can call in. I'm assuming we have Marshall on the star line, so 533-1020, 866-229-1020 on the Chris University Spirit line. You can get in if you've got a football recruiting is all we're talking about. Football recruiting questions. All right, let's kind of. I told Marshall. I didn't give him a whole lot of time to do any homework on this, and I didn't take a lot of time either. And we're going to turn this into a story. I'll write it up later today on Pokes Report. But one of the things we used to do back in the old days at Scout was we would do a mythical recruiting class several times during the recruiting cycle. We'd kind of take the commitments and then add who we thought. And there's different criteria. You can do a dream class where you just pick the very best guys you think you even have a shot at. I tend to go for what I call the potential class. It's got to be guys I want, but it's guys I'm not necessarily going for the out of reach guys or the barely reachable guys. I'm going for guys who fit and are practical that I want. And a lot of guys I want, you guys know this as well as anybody. I don't go by the damn stars. I mean, you look at last year's class. There's a lot of guys that weren't 4 or 5-star guys that I really wanted. One of those is already showing up in spring practice, and his parents were there to watch him yesterday, and that's John Paul Richardson. He's already showing up making some plays. I'm not going to sit here and tell you he's going to jump into the starting slots right now would be Braden Johnson and Brennan Presley. I don't think he's going to jump past them, but I think, Marshall, we've talked about John Paul Richardson. I look at him as being a Dylan Stoner 2.0.
Yeah, I mean, everything about him. His work ethic, his play style, his body frame, what he played in high school, everything points towards Dylan Stoner. And Dylan Stoner was one of the most beloved players we had in the program for 4 years, 5 years, however long it was. So we have another one. And you can argue that he's already more polished than Dylan was at this time. So,
I think so.
Yeah, like you said, Brennan, I don't think he's going to jump Brennan Presley and Braden Johnson, but as we know, there's a lot of receivers that go on through the field throughout a game or a season. So I definitely think you'll see him out there. I don't know if he'll get several catches a game or anything, but I do think that he's the kind of guy that will take advantage of whatever chances he does get, which will eventually get him more catches. But I mean, yeah, I completely agree. And he was not really a guy that was on many people's radar until Oklahoma State offered him. I think he had like 1 or 2 offers, and then he had 15 like 2 weeks later. So
Yeah.
he's
In
going to be a
fact,
guy.
you know what? I know this for a fact, and so do you. Mike Gundy, when he called him and offered him, and he said, "I'm telling you right now," and he told his dad this, Bucky Richardson, the former A&M and Houston Oilers quarterback in the NFL, who, by the way, he's big. John Paul may have another growth spurt in there somewhere. I don't know. I mean, maybe a late one because his dad is a good. I forgot how big he was as a quarterback. Kind of a running quarterback. Kind of a who's the cat for your team for the Saints? Tatum or Hill?
Taysom Hill.
Yeah, Taysom Hill. He was kind of Taysom Hill back in the early days in the NFL. The Oilers would put him in a bunch of different spots. All right. Anyway, getting on to our exercise here. Um, we're going to go through this. Let's quickly run through the commitments, and I'm going to cap this at 20 because
Okay.
right now I think they're looking at. I think the number's 18 that they would be able to sign this year based on the 85 because they're bumping the 85 number pretty good. Um, I'm going to expand it to 20 for our little exercise here. It's a good round number. All right, the Cowboys right now stand at, unless something's happened in the last 5 minutes, they stand at 8 commitments. They have their class quarterback, Garrett Rangel from Lone Star, Frisco Lone Star. C.J. Brown, 2 running backs out of the 3. They're going to have 3 in this class. That's what they're shooting for. C.J. Brown from Beggs and Ollie Gordon from Euless Trinity. There's another running back slot. They're going to take 3 receivers. They've got 1, Mason Gilkey out of Pahuska. Then over on the defensive side, Landon Dean, and I've plugged him in at a Leo, although he could be the other. He could be a defensive end. Gabe Brown from Stillwater, the linebacker. Cameron Epps at corner, and then Jordan Crook, who would be a bonus linebacker. So that's that's the 8, right?
That is the 8. Yes.
Okay. All right. So let's look over on the offensive side first. And I think the easiest one to plug in for me, and will Marshall have his own opinions, a third running back. This could be an athlete. You could count him as a receiver. But I'm going to plug in. I mean, we've seen his top 8 came out this week. Marshall reported that on Polk's Report. I looked at that. Okay, there's some good schools in there. But I think at the end of the line, there's not a school in there that I think will top Oklahoma State and playing with his brother for Braylon Presley. So, and I'm a big Presley guy. I know he's tiny, but you know what? Good things come in small packages a lot of times. I'm all aboard with Braylon Presley. And you can put him different places, but I'm going to put him at that third running back spot.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I do not expect him to go anywhere other than Oklahoma State. He has said multiple times that he wants to kind of play through his recruitment like a normal recruitment would go, not someone who has 100 ties to a certain school, including his brother. I do think that that's pretty much just because he wants to kind of get out of Bixby and go see some other schools, go visit some places, but I fully expect him to end up in Stillwater. So
okay, now I'm going to give you the opportunity here because there's still Jamarian Miller out of Tyler Legacy.
Yeah, that's the one wild card here.
Okay, and I'm going to ask you, do you Marshall Levenson? I mean, there's some other guys too. Jay-Sean Powers is an unranked guy that OSU offered out of Garland. There's a few others. I don't see any that they offered that have committed that are going to, everybody wanted Jaden Blue out of
Yeah.
Klein Kane down in Houston. Okay, so if you want, do you see, Jamarian Miller from Tyler Legacy fitting in, and that would move Presley maybe to a receiver?
That's exactly what I think is going to happen.
Okay.
I think the third running back will be Jamarion Miller, and I think whether he wants to count him as receiver or just kind of an
Bonus.
offensive player. I don't know what
Yeah.
exactly, because Oklahoma State is not really. The Oklahoma State staff is perfectly fine with not putting labels on guys if they just know they can
Sure.
make plays, whether offense or defense. So I think he's just kind of be a bonus player in a way, Braylon, that is. I don't think he plays running back. I think he plays slot receiver and maybe some special teams. So, but I think that Jamarion Miller would be the running back guy. But I think Braylon would also be here just more as an overall playmaker, if that makes sense.
All right. Okay, so that fills really two more spots.
And
Okay, now you're
both of those guys are bona fide 4-star guys. If you look at every
sure.
recruiting site you look on, they're both 4 stars. So that's a lot of talent.
All right, so now this is the hardest one for me, and I know this week the big news. The big news was the visit from Brennan Thompson, the Spearman receiver that's a 4-star. Man, I'd love for Oklahoma State to get him, but I'm kind of practical. I'm kind of realistic. Uh, Casey Dunn is an excellent recruiter of wide receivers. I've heard people say, hey, he's kind of a James Washington guy. He wants to have an ag degree. But I'm with you. I think it comes down to Oklahoma State and
Mm-hmm.
Clemson's an ag school too, and they've had a few wide receivers come through Clemson. Um,
Yeah,
it's hard for me to put him down.
yeah, it's a tough one. I mean, yeah, I agree.
And if not Brennan Thompson, who do you see as the biggest receiver target that Oklahoma State can haul in?
See, right now they've offered I think like 10 of them, and like 6 or 7
Yeah,
of them are committed. So you're choosing from a few, only a couple right now, which probably points towards more offers being sent out at some point. But I would say right now there was a recent offer of a guy named DJ Allen from Gladewater High School.
I
Um,
like
I
him.
watched him. I watched him at the Under Armour camp. He was good. I liked him.
And,
Obviously, if
and
I was
here's
putting,
an go ahead.
go ahead. Oh, no, go ahead.
No,
Go ahead.
you go ahead.
Okay. If this was a dream class, like I said, I'd be penciling in Brennan Thompson because I do think there is a chance at it. It's just you're going up against Clemson, and that's kind of tough sometimes. And I mean, I don't think he's scheduled a visit to Clemson yet. He's only scheduled a visit to Oklahoma State, so there is some plus, some bonuses here, or kind of some good signs. But it'll be tough. It'll be tough. But the good thing is
All
Oklahoma
right.
State's been in his recruitment for a very long time.
And I'm not saying when we put the class together, I'm gonna mention this in the story, but I'm not necessarily gonna peg on it. Oklahoma State fans through the years have been upset and frustrated on signing day. Not every signing day, but on occasion, because a guy in state they love that's been committed has, at the last 24 hours, flipped to the dudes in Norman, flipped to the Sooners. I'm not saying this will happen. I'm just saying I know for a fact they're not going to quit recruiting Tylen Shetron from Santa Fe. And
Mm-hmm.
when I say they, I'm not just talking about the coaching staff and especially Casey Dunn. I'm talking about the Santa Fe dudes on the OSU team. You've got Colin Oliver, you've got Trace Ford, you've got some Santa Fe. There's a Santa Fe pipeline, and I don't think those guys are going to quit bugging their buddy. Hey man, you fit in right up here. They'll throw you the ball all the time. What are you doing, man? We got a quarterback in that class. It's going to be really good, Garrett Rangel. Now I know OU can spot out all their All-American top quarterbacks in the country and so forth, but I'm just saying it's kind of like the Dumb and Dumber. So you tell me there's a chance. Yeah, I don't think that's necessarily over. So Talon Shetron, we'll see, but I had to throw that out there because it,
Yeah,
it
yeah.
makes for good. And you know what? OSU fans, if that happened right before signing day, even if it happened a month before signing day, and they got a flip from OU, that would almost be like a bedlam win on the field. There'd be the recruiting Cowboy fans would be saying, "This is the greatest thing ever, man. We just stole one from the Sooners." So that's I'm throwing it out there because OSU's not going to quit on the kid. In fact, that one stuck under the burr of Casey Dunn. So we need to take a timeout. We'll come back and we'll keep Marshall over because we'll fill the defensive spots. We got to fill the offensive tackles. We'll do that in a hurry. Stay with us. I think they'll be fairly easy to fill. The offensive tackle, and that's really what in talking to Charlie Dickey and to Todd Bradford. This comes, I think, from the head coach. They want offensive tackle style bodies. Then they'll figure out where they can fit from there. So they're looking at the bigger guys, and they got a lot of guys that are offered. Um, I'm going to throw these two out, and it's two of the preferred guys. Um, in fact, both of them are visiting, and I know one of them was committed and decommitted. Maybe this is my pipe dream pick. I know they've continued to recruit him hard, but my guys, the two offensive tackle spots, I'm going to throw Kelvin Banks, and I'm going to throw Nicholas Hall.
That's a good pick. Those would also be two of my picks, and I'll throw another one in there. I'll do Kelvin Banks, and I don't know if he'll end up playing guard or tackle, but I'll say Bray Lynch from Austin Westlake. I like him. He looked really good at the Under Armour camp.
That's a good pick too.
He's like 6'4", 285. So if he grows some more, could play tackle. But he was dominating pretty good at the guard position at the camp. So I'll throw him in there as well.
All right, and Lynch and Nicholas Hall are both 3-star guys, both out of Austin. Hall's out of Austin as well, and then everybody knows who Kelvin Banks is, out of Summer Creek down in Humble, Texas. So that's a well-known guy. That kind of fills out the offensive side, at least for now, and things may open up more depending on what that 85 number does. Let's go over to the defensive side where the 3 commits are Landon Dean, or 4 commits are Landon Dean, Gabe Brown, Jordan Crook, and then in the secondary, Cameron Epps. Cowboys are loaded at safety. They're loaded at safety on the roster. They were loaded with safeties coming into this class. It's not to say they won't take a bonus guy or a guy may not slide to safety. But corner is we'll do this from back to front. Corner, they've got Epps, and they're looking at 2 others. I know the offer hadn't come through yet, but I'm really, after watching a little tape, I am fascinated with the Parkview quarterback safety, and so I'm going to throw him on the list. I know he's a safety. I know he may end up being a linebacker, but I like Jalen White.
Yeah, I mean, with his size and frame and measurables.
I guess we ought to wait for the offer, but I like him.
I mean, if there was going to be, we'll throw that in there. If there's someone in the class that does not have an offer right now that'll be here, Jalen White's a good answer. From as far as corners, I think there's 2 that are kind of above the rest right now as far as like leaning Oklahoma State, and that's Avion Jones out of South Lake Carroll and DJ McKinney, also from the Dallas area at College.
And you know what? Avion Jones is on my list, and I'll tell you another guy that I have a pretty good eye on, and that's Kyron Chambers.
Yeah, he was the third one. I could see all 3 of them, depending on how the scholarship numbers play out, if let's just say they do take 20 instead of 18, let's say some stuff opens up, I could see them taking all four of those corners: Cameron Epps, Avion Jones, Kyron Chambers, and DJ McKinney. I think that they would probably do that if they could afford to. And all of those guys, like obviously Epps is committed. The other three, they are very high on Oklahoma State, if not Oklahoma State number one on their list. So I think all three of those dudes will be committed sometime in the summer, and they could come on the visit. So those will be definitely ones to watch out for pretty soon.
No doubt, no doubt. And I would throw this in too. He's probably a little more of a pipe dream. Yeah, he's away. He never mind. I'm not even going to list him. He's too much of a pipe dream. You want to guess who I was going to throw out?
Jeremy Patton.
No, I was going to throw out Brooks.
Oh, yeah, no, he ain't coming here, unfortunately.
Just because I passed by John Paul II in Plano a lot, and I actually know the coaching staff there, but I'm with you. That's a pipe dream. That's why I call it a pipe dream.
There are three schools that he will be attending. One of it'll be Texas, Alabama, or Notre Dame. So
I got you. I wouldn't bet against Notre Dame right now.
Yeah, that dude's incredible.
Yeah. All right, now as we move forward, you're looking at for a defensive tackle and a nose guard.
Mm-hmm.
This guy, I think he'll grow into a defensive tackle. I like him a lot, and there were two guys. I saw them both at Denison last year, and liked them both. And in fact, there's another guy. I've got a bonus guy that I want to put in this class as well, and we'll get to that here in a second. But the two guys that I'm looking at are Jalen Marshall from up in Kansas, and I really like him. His dad was a walk-on at OSU. I think he's a definite fit. And then the other guy, these are both guys that would grow into defensive tackles, I think. The other one's Chris McClellan, who I went and saw him play again last year in Tahlequah when they were in the playoffs at Tulsa Edison. Now he's at Owasso. He's transferred schools, which I kind of like the fact he didn't, but I think at the end of the day, he just thought, I want to play for a team that has a chance to win a championship, and he was loyal to Edison right up until this last year. But I'm going to go cutting them down to one. You may go the opposite way from me, but I'm going to go with Jalen Marshall.
Yeah, I mean, he would definitely be Chris McClellan. He's become, in the last month now, he's become a national prospect. I mean, he's USC, Florida State. Everybody's coming after this dude. So he's going to be a tough one to land, but I'll give you another one other than those two. I do like the chances of landing both of those, but I'll give you another one, and that's Trey Emery.
Yep.
He, I can't think of his school name right now, but he's been on the board for a while. He really likes Oklahoma State. He has scheduled an official visit for one of those, I think the 13th maybe. I think that sounds right.
Yeah.
11th through the 13th, something like that.
He's on the back end. And you know what?
So,
I can tell you the school because I've been there quite often. And my son went and watched them play this last year and came away, because he coaches the defensive line at Northeastern as well as, co-defensive coordinator. And he said, I can't get the guy, but Dad, Trey Emery's a stud. Mount Pleasant, which is a smaller school. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, he went and saw Mount Pleasant play. It's Don Meredith's alma mater. The long time, Dallas Cowboys quarterback. It's where the former Baylor coach is the head coach now.
Mount Vernon.
Mount Vernon. It was Mount Pleasant and Mount Vernon. Yeah.
Yeah.
And but he said Trey Emery's a stud. So I'm with you on that. Huh?
I said I could see him in this class for sure.
I could too, but I tell you the guy, and if you're just comparing him head to head, Jalen Marshall and Chris McClellan, and I've seen them both play. Uh, Even if you thought Chris McClellan was the better player now, and I think it'd be 50-50. I think you come away watching both those kids saying, yeah, they're pretty close. I think the guy that has more upscale potential is Marshall. I really do. So, you know what? Here's what I think, and this is why I'm going to plug him in. I'm going to plug in. I think you're right about Emery, and I think he likes Oklahoma State a lot. Because they're looking for a nose and a defensive tackle.
Mm-hmm.
I think Trey Emery can play nose. If not nose, he's definitely a 3. And I think Jalen Marshall's definitely going to grow into a 3 technique. So, you'd be okay with both those guys. So that's the way I'm going to go with those guys. All right, last thing, 2 things. Have you looked at kickers? Because I think they're hoping to get a kicker. I don't even know who they've.
There's a kid. I'm trying to remember his name. There's a kid that goes to Amarillo. Who
I know who you're talking about.
I cannot remember his name. It's on a list on my computer somewhere. But there's a kid that goes to Amarillo that is pretty good. I will say that. But
I go ahead.
You may have even written about him before. But there is another kid I will say is like a I'm not going to say what's the word I'm thinking of, a possibility down the line. They have not offered him. I don't even think they've talked to him. But there's a kicker at a school that I've watched several times for several people, and that is at Frisco Lone Star. Watching Garrett Ringel and Jaden Nixon the past couple of years. He's a 2022 kicker. This kid can boot it. Field goals, 45 plus, easy every game. So he's a possibility. I don't even know if they talked to him, but kickers are very fluid. You can find some pretty much everywhere, every state that aren't really being looked at or found that are worthy of playing at this level. So, yeah, I think that they'll find one from Texas is my guess. So they're gonna bring one in from Texas.
Yeah, and I'll look that up. We'll throw something on the fire there. Okay, last question before we let Marshall go. Oklahoma State just the other day offered a player who's already committed to Baylor. We talk about guys flipping, and that's I don't know his first K-I-N.
Yeah, it's like
Kean Roberts Day. He's an athlete, but he's a jumbo athlete, defensive end type, tight end type, and I think Oklahoma State likes him as a tight end type. And apparently he has a hankering and likes Oklahoma State. I think he's going to probably end up checking Oklahoma State out, and I'm sure Baylor's not real excited about it because he's been committed to them for a little while. But I'm going to throw him on the fire. I think this.
I mean, they're gonna. I think they'll bring in a tight end, and I don't really see one right now that they've offered previously that is like a for sure thing. So I think he's probably a pretty good bet.
Yeah. Since he kind of likes the idea, So
I don't think they would have offered. I don't think they would have offered if they didn't think they had a chance at him. So there's that.
No, and that would be interesting if you're. If that 7-on-7 deal you're at, if he's down there, I would definitely hook up with him.
Yeah, I'll try to find him.
See if he's around. So those are always great stories. Now Baylor's not going to be real fired up, but hey, it's recruiting. All's fair in love, war, and recruiting, as long as you don't violate NCAA rules. Hey Marshall, I appreciate the time. I'm going to write this story up. Hopefully getting all your opinions right. This will be it's always fun to do. Little mythical take on the recruiting class. And take care.
Yes, sir. I'll see you soon.
All right. Marshall Levenson from Pokes Report doing a great job as he